All right, now we're going to start the next one. I was also asked to share with you what would happen if Adam and Eve didn't eat from the tree of knowledge. What would have happened? Hmm? C.S. Lewis, in one of his Narnia stories, had Aslan say to Lucy, Lucy's asking him, what would have happened if? I think it was in The Magician's Nephew when they let the witch arrive in Narnia, and then the boy is asking him, what would have happened? He said, son, no one was given the answer to what would have happened. No one. Means it's not for us to even think about it, because it's ultimately is a question beyond our own limitations and our own time. So there's no way we can actually say what would have happened. But you can be assured that Adam would have to go through some kind of transformation. And I'm thinking it would have to be through the tree of life. He would have to eat from the tree of life first. Let's go. What else we needed to talk about is, okay, quickly through the fall. The devil found that Adam and Eve is being close to God. They are coached by him. They're going to be like him. Adam is gaining a lot of knowledge about what God likes and what he doesn't like. And he's going to be soon like God. He's going to be a true child of God. And the serpent didn't like that. He said, we have to interrupt this very quickly. So I cannot go to Adam. Adam seems very stubborn. He's not going to listen. I'm going to go to Eve. And why Eve? She's the weaker link. She knows God. She knows the commandment through Adam. If I'm going to have any success, it will be through Eve, not through Adam, because she learned the commandment and learned about God through Adam. So the serpent goes to Eve. When the serpent speaks to Eve, makes her doubt God. Tell her that he doesn't really care about you. He cares about keeping his own status. He doesn't want you to be like him, because there's a great knowledge, great wisdom. When you eat from the tree, you will be like him, knowing how to differentiate between what's good and what's not good. In which way we said good and not good? In the most general way. Things I like, things I don't like. I like red, I don't like black. I like green, I don't like blue. That's not, to me, green is good, but maybe to you, green is bad. To you, maybe blue is good, but this is general. A good and evil here doesn't mean virtue and sin. It means in general, I can choose for myself what I like. This is, if you think about it, this is the major problem of every age. The father might see watching TV on the week of tests as a greatest evil. The child see the same thing as the greatest good ever existed. It's a way to escape the stress and to free your anxious mind. And you can apply it to everything. So whatever the child sees as good, the father and the mother sees as evil. This is the choices. This is where Adam and Eve actually gained from the tree. To take that choice to their own hands and to object to God. I don't want your opinion. I can make it for myself. I don't want you to tell me what's right and what's wrong. Just forget about it. Isn't that what's happening every day? Between husband and wife, between parents and children, between friends, they clash. Well, how did you do this? And the friend says, there's nothing wrong with it. What do you mean there's nothing wrong with it? This is absolutely rubbish. This is wrong. And they fight because they're distinguishing evil and good from two different perspectives. What's a saint? Who is a saint when you apply this rule? A saint who sees good, what God calls it good. A saint sees evil, what God calls it evil. Who is a saint? A person who is like God in their choices. So when the devil came to give Adam and Eve their choices, the whole target was to let them see things from a perspective different from that of God. And by doing that, this is the most cunning way to separate a person from his friend, his spouse, his father, his mother. This is the temptation. When the temptation came, the first thing they saw as not good, that God called it very good. God, when he created Adam and Eve, he said, very good. What did they see that's not good, that God would disagree with them? Their nakedness. I was reminded by a pediatrician in a text message that a few years ago, they said the best thing to do for a baby, to get the baby naked before they clothe it, and lay it on the breast of the mother naked, to have skin over skin. And said the studies showed it helped the bonding between the mother and the baby, and it helped also breastfeeding. So that nakedness is extremely important for the bonding of the baby and the mother. The same for husband and wife. You don't have to, any intimate, very intimate relationship has to include that. This bonding happens, that the two becomes one body. So this is the devil didn't like. What was God seeing as good in nakedness for the intimacy, the devil made it look like very evil, because they looked at themselves and said, forget about the intimacy with my wife, forget about intimacy with my kids and with God. This is not right. And they looked at themselves and said, it's awful. So nakedness that was good became now what? Evil. And they started covering themselves. When they cover themselves, they want to separate themselves from each other. They don't want to see each other's nakedness, and they don't want to let God see them. And this is the beginning of the separation. It has a lot of meanings in it. Okay. Now we go to the next chapter. So why did God put a cherubim at the garden, at the gate of the garden? What's a cherubim? This is his personal guard. God has the 4 cherubim. One looks a face of a lion, a face of a man, a face of a bull, a face of an eagle. These are his personal guards. So he had one of them hold the sword with fire at the gate of the garden after Adam and Eve left. Why? Now they are guarding the garden. Because they're inside of it, the tree of life. If Adam and Eve are going to eat from the tree of life, what would Adam and Eve be? Demons. They will be demons. They will be creatures who cannot die, who are against God. Their choices is completely against God, and they will be living forever, and all what they can do is to be fighting against God. And God felt so bad that the humans would have that, so he prevented it by all means. But I can tell you that Adam, I'm sure, Adam came very close, looked after the fire and the sword into a nostalgia, into an old past, a beautiful past that he enjoyed the company very much, and now he cannot have it anymore. The last one that I think I was asked about is the tree of life. The tree of life is where the life of God, a character of God that was given to humans, life of God. And there's 3 places at least, or 4. Three. The Garden of Eden has the tree of life. The manna had a part in the Ark of the Covenant. We'll talk about when we come to Moses. And the final and the last and the most beautiful one is the body of Jesus Christ. Those are the 3 trees of life, or the 3 places where the tree of life is manifested. Again, the tree of life in the garden, the manna in the Ark of the Covenant, and the body of Christ himself. Okay, now let us go to the flood, the next covenant, the covenant with Noah and the nations. This is the second of the covenants that God's going to make. It is partially a renewal of the covenant with Adam. It is not a new covenant, by the way. This covenant is a renewal, the covenant of humanity being renewed. The inquiry questions we have: who are the main genealogy persons from Adam to Noah? There are very important persons in that genealogy. We said genealogies are the link between one covenant and the other. What is the process of making the covenant with Noah and his descendants? In this covenant, after the fall, we're going to start seeing the process of making a covenant. What is the process of marriage? Marrying someone. Someone gets to be married. How do you think about this? Say they are in college, they graduated college, they're in post-grad, and they are getting married. They want to get married. So what is the process? There is a certain sequence. You might all know it, or you might not. What's the sequence? You first start thinking about getting married. A boy, usually a boy, in these days might be a girl. go and ask a girl to get to know her. That's the first thing. It's like an invitation. Say, hey girl, I want to get to know you a little better. I don't, if the girl says that, that's fine with me. I don't really mind, but it's a little bit different. We're in a different age anyway. Now, what's the next step? They get to know each other, talk a little bit. That is called courtship. They get to know each other, know their matters and their behaviors and characters, what they like and what they don't like. And then the next step would be an engagement of sorts, which we call it the ring, right? In the culture here, they say he would propose. They're preparing for the big step. Everybody knows that. Once he offered the ring, they are set on a course to get married. And after the ring, not too long, what happens? You get a ceremony where there is usually, hopefully, something happens in the church. But then after the church, immediately there's another one that happens in a restaurant or a hotel or something, or a resort, where they get a party and everybody eats in honor of this bond, and everybody witnessed that. And there's details in each one of them. There's like a lot of details inside of them. Who buys what, and they have a first kiss in the church or whatever in the ceremony, whatever that these details is included in the package of the sequence of that covenant. So in the covenant with Noah, we'll see that sequence for the first time. You're going to have a glimpse into it that's going to go all the way to the New Testament. And our Lord is going to talk about it. You're going to see that. And St. Paul is going to talk about it. If you understand today what we are talking about, you might be able to understand St. Paul's letter to the Romans and Galatians, especially Romans and Galatians and many other letters. He's going to speak about that first initial step that makes the beginning of the covenant. And it's extremely important that you understand it. He calls it the righteousness of faith. Just keep that word in mind. Righteousness of faith. To God to call us righteous when we believe. Let's go and look into this. The third point is how the covenant with Noah is a renewal of the creation covenant. We see there's a lot of similarities between the two covenants, between Adam's covenant and Noah's covenant. What are the implications of the account of the flood on the church? There's something the church took from the flood account. How did Noah's descendants divide into nations, the last one? I extended the reading to 11. Forgive me. We have the genealogy, the first question. There's important people in that genealogy that we need to focus on, and they are must study. Let's look at the first part, the genealogy. So you have Adam and Eve. They begot 3 sons. I didn't write one of them, and I'm going to tell you why. We did say that last time. Cain genealogy is considered a separate genealogy. Why? Remember, I titled it as why Cain genealogy is not part of this. Got excommunicated. He killed his brother, didn't want to do anything with the family. And when Eve is going to name Seth, Seth means replacement. So Seth is a replacement of Abel, whom Cain killed. So why would you need a replacement if you have 2 brothers? Okay, you have 2 sons. One of them killed the other, so you have at least 1, right? You call somebody a replacement if you have no child. That's the only child. So in her mind, Abel was the only child. So Cain, although she gave birth to Cain, he became an enemy and killed her only child. That you understand a little bit that actually in the mind of Adam and Eve, Cain was a stranger. Although he was born physically to them, but in the meantime, he was not of their own line. Sometimes parents would say this, you're not like my child. I don't even some days I comes and I think I don't know you. How can you be my child and you're acting this way? So they thought of Cain like that. And eventually Cain has to do it because he doesn't belong to them. St. John is going to come in the letter and say, they were not of us. If they were of us, they would have stayed with us. But because they are not of us, they left. They never belonged. And that's why they left. They took off. So Cain took off because he never belonged. He's not. So when you read the Bible, there is chapter 4 and 5 in Genesis. One of them is the genealogy of Adam, and the other one is genealogy of Cain. I thought Cain was the son of Adam. No. Adam is the son of God, and his line is the children of God. Cain is the son of the devil, because he's the killer, the murderer from the beginning. So they had to leave. He left. And he has a line in chapter 5, I think. One of them is 4 and the other one is 5. So the genealogy includes Seth. Beautiful thing said about Seth. Seth is in his time, he had a child, his name is Enosh. Seth started to call on the name of the Lord. What does that mean? When you read it, he called on the name of the Lord. He started to pray to God by name, to call God. Now they're outside the garden. They have not encountered with God that frequent. They started to pray, to learn prayer. Did you need to pray when you're in the garden? No, because you were seeing God every day. You only pray. Prayer is talking in faith. You don't see, but you still understand that God listens. So in his time, the time of Enosh, Seth started to call on the name of the Lord. That's the beginning of, it's the first time for that to happen. Abraham is going to call on the name of the Lord later. There's two Enosh, one with an S and the other one is a C. Enosh is the third from Adam. The one with the C is the seventh from Adam. There's two Enoshes. The one with the C is a righteous man, very, very great human being, one of the greatest human beings ever lived. Enosh with the C was a holy man who described as walked with God, and he was not. What does it mean he was not? Nobody could find him. When he was 365 years old, he disappeared. And he told his family, God's going to take me. I'm not going to be here. Did he die? No. He never died. There are two people like that in the Bible. The second one would be Elijah. So those are the two people that were perfect in God's sight. But there's a reason why God took them. There's a reason. I'm going to tell you that reason. In his time, when we describe his time, was the most evil time. This is the time before the flood. This is the time before God's going to send the flood. This is a generation of people that deserve to be cut off. Elijah time, the same way. In his time, he was in the time of Isabel, the wickedest person in the Bible. More wicked than Cain himself. And in the time of Elijah, she wanted to kill him, and the same thing happened. What does that mean? To me, if I look at it, we have a saying in Egypt, your bright penny will help you in the dark day. Your bright penny means like your little thing that is so bright in your hand that is very meager and small. If you keep it with you in a dark day, it might help you. You get a piece of bread or a loaf of bread or something, right? So why is God keeping those two bright pennies? Because they're waiting for a very dark day. The Bible is going to tell us about the two of them coming back at the end of times, when it's going to be very dark and they're actually going to continue to live and preach against the Antichrist. It's a time of Antichrist. Something to put on the side. So he was not means he was not found, for God took him. Enoch lived in times where people were severely corrupt. The severity of sin was described by Enoch himself. Where you find that? There is a book called the Book of Enoch. There's a book called the Book of Enoch. It's not part of our Bible. It's not part of what we have as a Bible, but the Ethiopians have it. And in that book, there's a prophecy. Listen to this. In the letter of Jude, which is one chapter in the New Testament, Jude is quoting it, citing Enoch, saying stuff. What did Enoch say in the letter of Jude? What did he say? He said, there were ungodly men who had done ungodly deeds. When you say ungodly from a man who is so pure like Enoch, it means horrible stuff. But he cannot describe it in any other way. Ungodly deeds done in ungodly way. Not only they had done it with severe viciousness that you cannot think of them as humans anymore. And harsh things spoken against God. They didn't only do bad, evil things in a bad way, but they also did what? Blasphemed. Those people believed in God. They did. They believed that He existed. But their belief didn't lead them to worship Him. Their belief led them to insult God openly. Imagine people in the streets, God forbid, shouting profanity against heaven. Can you imagine that? This was the time of Enoch. The book of Revelation will speak about something like that in the end of times. Enoch was prophesying against his generation and expecting the judgment of God. He begot Methuselah. If you look at the genealogy, Methuselah is, in some translation, it said, when he dies, we'll send it. That's the meaning of the name. Some people say that the Methuselah means when he die, Methuselah die, we'll send it. Send what? The flood. So that his son was a prophecy about the coming of the flood, because Enoch told his family, God is coming. This is not going to pass. He's not going to be okay with this. There will be a judgment. And my son, Methuselah, is going to live till exactly before this happens. In the letter to Jude, he says he'll come with the thousands of his angels to judge all, convict all for all the ungodly deeds they had done in ungodly manner, and all the harsh things that ungodly people, he said ungodly 4 times. Now, he's expecting this and telling his family, and made his son and his name a prophecy. He begot Methuselah, who is the longest lived one in all the genealogies of the Bible. How many years he lived? 960 some? 969? That's the longest age given in the Bible. And when you count the genealogies, you might be able to do. You find that Methuselah died in the year the flood came. The same year the flood came. He died just before the flood. And there is a lot of written stuff about that. Methuselah, in some stories written after the fact, I mean, recently, poetry, says to Noah. Now, Methuselah is the grandfather of Noah. Okay, so he's telling Noah, his grandchild, please finish. I'm so tired. I need to go to my father's and my grandfather. I can't be lingering here too long. Let's finish. What's he supposed to finish? The ark. So he, being a very old man of 969 years, he's tired of living and he wants to go. He died in the same year the flood came.
I wrote to you many times.
This was a prophecy and support for Enoch family. Enoch is the one righteous person in a very dark time. He wanted his family to stay with God, and he did all what he could to support them until he was taken. It seemed that Enoch had taught his family of the coming of the flood and of the judgment of God. Enoch is the reason why Noah and his son were chosen to continue the covenant and renew it through them. It was because of Enoch. Enoch is the reason why Noah was chosen. He is the one who kept his family in the knowledge of God, in the covenant with Adam. He did. So you cannot underestimate Enoch. He's a really someone.